Tally Labs has like a fundamental belief that the next generation of amazing stories and franchises and characters and really just like sort of media properties will be born on the internet and will be born out of a small group of people working together on the internet. And then, ultimately will have any like level of success. I think we think that there could be massive properties that exist that sort of only ever stay on the internet. There could also be things that end up, on Netflix or with studios or as games or as puzzles or like all sorts of different things. But we feel like when you look at Web3 projects, certainly there's like a really interesting blockchain component. But what you have across the board that is super, super consistent is a group of people who are connected to each other based off of like a common interest, who work together to develop like a property.
NFTs are redefining the cryptocurrency landscape and taking the world by storm. This is Ashley Smith from Fame Lady Squad, and I want to welcome you to From the Blockchain. As leaders of an all-female avatar NFT project, we want to share our insight and industry knowledge with you. We want to empower more women to participate and dominate in the NFT space. So whether you're an early adopter or just a curious learner, we hope you join us to explore the exciting world of NFTs. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to From the Blockchain. This is your girl, Ashley Smith, also known as Board Becky in some fun circles. So excited to be here with you today to introduce a really fun conversation that we recently had with a team of founders that are just doing some of the coolest stuff in the Web3 and NFT environment. They're folks that I've watched from afar for a little while, early days of my NFT and Web3 journey, and have recently gotten slightly closer to in terms of I'm a holder in their project. So not financial advice, everybody do your own research. From the blockchain, we're here to bring thought leadership and Web3 innovation to you. So this is, as you should know, hopefully by now, much less about encouraging you to sign up and financially participate in any of these things, but to really understand what people are doing, what creatives are thinking about, what they're building, what entrepreneurs are doing in the space, and hopefully sparking ideas for yourself into, what could Web3 mean for you in your organization or your business or with your creative endeavor? These guys, man, they've just really blazed some trails, and I just feel like it's such a privilege to have had them on the podcast. Who am I talking about? VJ Jones and Safa, C-Ape, Follow Ape. Two gentlemen, the co-founders and co-CEOs behind Jenkins the Valet, which some of you in the NFT space, I'm sure, are very familiar with. Jenkins the Valet and Tally Labs and their whole ecosystem, which we will get into in the show. But what's important for you to know ahead of time, we get talking about intellectual property, within the Web3 environment, and even just building IP online, and what that might mean, especially from a decentralized perspective, what types of opportunities there are out there, and from a community participation perspective. They're really creating platforms and tools to get folks in the Web3 space involved in storytelling, bringing life to characters through a variety of ways, including books, podcasts, and I know they probably got some really neat things up their sleeves. They talk about their journey from the very beginning and how they kind of dove in really just with a curious mindset as to where this could all go, played around and tested some theories that obviously paid off. They have, really been able to develop from a curious mindset, play around and see what we can do, approach to something that's much more, organized business, where they've, been working with capital that's been invested in them and their team and their vision. And we get into a little bit about that too, is kind of building in Web3, especially an ecosystem that's, a little volatile, especially right now, what that means. Some of their learnings along the way, and some fun anecdotes as well. I think these two are folks that you want to be following for sure online. And I think Jenkins the Valet and the ecosystem around Tally Labs, I think is again just a really cool story and journey to follow to see where it came from and where it's going to go. So if you're thinking about entering the Web3 space, and thinking about storytelling and IP, and even just community involvement, in one way or another, I think these guys are ones to watch, to take away some good examples and some learnings, and maybe see what you might be able to do in terms of implementation, with your own ideas and visions. So I'm really excited. I think you're going to enjoy this episode. I think today we're just going to keep it short. I'm going to let you just get right into the show. So thank you for joining us today on From the Blockchain. Please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on YouTube. We are starting to launch our episodes on YouTube. So if you go there today, you will see some episodes. I'm super excited. And hopefully at some point you're watching us. Our production, by the way, on the video side will be improving over time. A little personal note, I just moved. So you see a new background if you are watching. I'm just against a blank wall right now, but we're going to spruce this up a little bit. But thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you're all doing well. I know, depending on where you are in the world and the time you're listening, this is mid-March now, that you're doing all right. There's been some ups and downs in this space and in the economy and all of that. But innovation always drives things forward. And that's why we're here and serving this purpose with From the Blockchain. All right, all. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to welcome VJ and Safa from Tally Labs, Jenkins the Valet, and everything around it to the show From the Blockchain. First of all, I just want to say I'm huge fans. Full disclosure, I actually own some Jenkins NFTs, and some Bored and Dangerous book NFTs and everything like that. So this is just going to be a fun conversation to dive in. We at From the Blockchain are really looking at the theme of innovation in Web3 and what the possibilities are. And these guys have been leading the way in media and intellectual property since the very beginning. So it's such a privilege and pleasure to have them on the show. Since we have two of you on, I'm just going to do my best to navigate between you two. But first, I'm just going to say hello, VJ. Hello, Safa. How are you guys doing today?
Hello, doing great, and let me say we're big fans back. So thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you. Safa, how about you?
I'm doing great. You're going to hear me say this a lot throughout the interview, but what he said. Yeah, really, really excited to be here and talking with you. And thank you for being a holder.
Oh, yay. So let's start from the very beginning. First, I'm going to say, I believe, VJ, I met you more in passing and had a little bit of a chance to chat at the first NFT NYC back in October 2021. I had known about Jenkins the Valet as a project prior to this, and at the time my ETH was scarce, and I didn't make the plunge to buy into the project. But when we had the chance to meet and I got to see a little bit more of your vision, I was like, okay, I know I missed out. I had thought I probably did. And it was just so neat to see, meet you guys in real life and see like how committed you were to your vision and building these things out. But just also just the creativity and the commitment to it. So why don't we go back a little bit to like, where did this all come from? Maybe we'll start with VJ.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of your listeners who have heard us on podcasts before, or have heard us speak, might know this. But the story for me and Safa actually starts like way before the Bored Ape Yacht Club, like all the way back on the playground in third grade.
Cool.
Yeah, where we became best friends. And The two of us have sort of always done all sorts of different things together. We played on the same sports teams growing up. We've always like tinkered with different ideas. I have this memory of like being in the fifth grade and the two of us like sitting in his kitchen, like hustling on this big like end of the year project. I think it was called the $1 million project, and Safa made like some really cool like fitness facility. He was like ahead of his time, and so we've always been doing stuff together. And you know, in after college, we went to school together. We played basketball together in college, and after that, we sort of went in different directions for our careers. I went into product management, and I was working at different software companies. And Safa went into marketing and brand and creative and strategy, and he ended up starting an agency. And both of us were sort of just fell in love with NFTs. First through NBA Top Shot because we're basketball fans. But then, you know, we're always, even when we were working on different stuff at the beginning of our careers, we'd be texting each other cool ideas, things we're working on, things we're thinking about. And both of us were seeing like how special the Web3 space could be for a few different reasons. And I think we were both looking at it through the lens of what we had already done in our careers, but also recognizing that, like, you know, really what was happening in 2020 and 2021 with Web3 was this intersection of technology and brand and media and all of the different things that we were interested in. And we were like, you know, it would be, let's just dive in. Like as fans and as consumers, like we just, as hobbyists, we wanted to participate. We were, Safa, you know, anyone who's friends with Safa knows that he's always like on the cutting edge. So he was early into the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I don't know who was earlier between the two of you, Bored Becky and Safa, but you two were both OGs.
I was just wondering if either of you minted Bored Apes.
Did you mint Safa?
I did not. I think I got it, I don't know, maybe a week or two after mint for like point 0.2 or 0.25 or something.
You beat me for sure. You did.
Oh, nice.
So yeah. he sent me like a screenshot of his DMs after he switched his profile picture to an ape. And it was like 100 people messaging him, being like, welcome, saying ape noises, literally typing out ape noises, like you name it. And I was like, this community is crazy. Like, it was so interesting. I really wanted to join and be a part of it. And so I bought Ape 1798, who now, you know, folks know as Jenkins the Valet. I think maybe the price was like 0.4 ETH, and ETH was like 1900. So, you know, I don't know, it was like 700, $800, which felt like crazy. And I had some ETH, you know, I didn't have like a ton, but we were both in crypto in 2017 and sort of had bought some ETH and didn't really think about it as like a cultural phenomenon, just thought of it as like a financial sort of situation. But even like spending some of my ETH on a Bored Ape at the time felt like really uncomfortable, because I was like, am I really like parting ways with like Ethereum for this, like, for this image? It's just crazy to think back about how like different the times were and how all this stuff was like so nascent. And the funny thing about Ape 1798 is he really looks like a character, right? Everybody knows Jenkins the Valet because he look like he's just so like perfectly suited to be a valet. And my background is in creative writing, actually, before I started working in software. And so I just like went down to like the coffee shop below my apartment, like maybe the day after I bought the ape. And Safa and I had been texting about sort of cool things we thought we could do with him because he looked like a character. And independently, we both sort of had this idea for him, which was, as a valet, he like sees things, right? And he knows things, and he knows the secrets of all these other apes, and the ways that we could sort of tap into like the Bored Ape Yacht Club storyline. And that there could be this opportunity to invite other people who owned Bored Apes to participate in the storytelling, because, you know, obviously it's fiction. And so the only way that we as the writers of Jenkins could figure out what Jenkins had done would be to ask people who owned Bored Apes, like, hey, what have you done with Jenkins, right? So it was like a partnership from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so the first story that we wrote, Jenkins had like, I don't know, 30 followers, which you got for free if you set your profile picture as an ape in May of 2021, you'd get 30 followers for sure, because people were just like following apes. I mean, Safa stands for See Ape Follow Ape, so that's like that was everything back then. And we
Never seen
posted
an ape
this
I didn't
story.
follow.
And it's true actually. And we posted this story, and it, like, in this small way, I guess it went viral. We had 30 followers, but it did, I don't know, 60,000 impressions. It got maybe 100. I don't even know if it got 100 retweets, but it felt like a million retweets, like just the energy that was around the first Jenkins story. And we looked at each other and we were like, there's really there's something pretty powerful here around inviting people to participate in this like storytelling process. And I don't think we knew it back then, but it ended up being really like everything we needed to know to embark on this journey together, to try to create media and to create stories that like start on the internet and sort of spin out from there.
I definitely would love to know. Well, first of all, I love hearing this. It sounds to me, what I'm hearing is, it started out as a playful endeavor. I'm assuming you obviously knew at the time that the Bored Ape Yacht Club was offering exclusive commercial IP rights of the individual NFTs. But it sounds like it started out as something playful and very exploratory, and then you had an aha moment pretty quick. And like, did you think that early on when you saw that happen, like, we need to build a business around this?
I mean, you sort of hit the nail on the head, and VJ touched on it, but I think we had sort of been in a place in our careers where there was a lot of things that we were trying. Some things had worked, some things had not, and we both were sort of like, we owe it to ourselves as friends and to whatever this ends up happening sort of in our career, that like, let's just do this, no strings attached, and let's have fun. And we sort of went in with the mindset that like, if we could do that, that's when something maybe beautiful would happen, as opposed to trying to force it into a business like right away. And so because we approached it with that mindset, it just became really organic. We knew that Bored Apes were offering commercial rights, which was certainly enticing to us. They were pioneers in that. But then after, I think a lot of other people started to do that. So we talk a lot about, frankly, how lucky we were that like Bored Apes is what we decided to sort of build on top of. It could have been any number of now defunct, PFPs. So it was very much a right place, right time situation. But I think we knew, I don't know the exact time frame, but it sort of became clear that we were doing something that wasn't being done, and that we had a community that was really excited. And we sort of took it one step at a time. We were like, how many impressions can we get on this story? How many followers can we get on Twitter? How many people can we get into our Discord? And after each of those things started happening, and sort of the excitement of the community continued to grow, we started to look at each other and we were like, okay, this could be like a business. And then from there, we were sort of brainstorming around what that looks like. Obviously, we had no ambition to do just like one NFT drop. If we were going to do something, we wanted it to be longer lasting and actually make a difference. And so everything that we had done from the early Jenkins stories was with the goal of helping other people tell stories for their apes, and also essentially early like crowdsourcing content by saying, tell us about your ape, tell us about the time that, you and Jenkins did a deed together, et cetera. So that sort of like early experimentation guided a lot of what we still do now, honestly.
So cool. I think, and you're right, I can appreciate that, right time, right place, right PFP. But I also think that it speaks to really being immersed in something new and having your finger on the pulse and getting a strong sense or gut instinct that something might be worth exploring further. I hope that's a takeaway for our audience. Don't be afraid of this space, and the opportunities, if you put yourself in the right way, in the right position, might present themselves. So anyways, I just think you guys are amazing for having taken that forward in the way that you did. For our audience, I would love for you both to paint a picture of your sort of Tally Labs ecosystem, because the way that I see it is like you have different branches now, you have different moving parts within this ecosystem. And I think for them to understand that it's more, and I don't mean to be dismissive or whatever, or belittling, but it's more than just telling stories about apes. Like, you guys are building something really neat in the media space here. So I'll let you choose who wants to start with that.
Maybe we'll just both take it a little bit.
Sure.
And often on these, when we come on, podcasts together, we just alternate back and forth.
Cool.
So we have a little bit of practice with it, I guess. Tally Labs has like a fundamental belief that the next generation of amazing stories and franchises and characters and really just like sort of media properties will be born on the internet and will be born out of a small group of people working together on the internet. And then, ultimately will have any like level of success. I think we think that there could be massive properties that exist that sort of only ever stay on the internet. There could also be things that end up, on Netflix or with studios or as games or as puzzles or like all sorts of different things. But we feel like when you look at Web3 projects, certainly there's like a really interesting blockchain component. But what you have across the board that is super, super consistent is a group of people who are connected to each other based off of like a common interest, who work together to develop like a property. It could be Fame Lady Squad, or it could be stories about Jenkins the Valet, or it could be Bored Apes, or it could be like something totally different. It could be stuff outside of Web3. I mean, this is a bit of a niche example, but like I'm sure a lot of people have seen The Martian, which ended up being like a super successful movie. The author like posted each chapter on like a blog and and cultivated a community of people who felt like that was like an awesome story, and they followed the blog, and then the blog became a book, and then the book became like I think Matt Damon like was in it, right? Like it's a crazy movie. And so this stuff has been happening for a long time, and I think Tally Labs like just has this fundamental belief that that is only going to increase. And so there are really two things that Tally Labs is doing about that. And I'll just lay them out and then I'll let Safa jump in and talk about them. We ourselves are creators. We created the character Jenkins the Valet, inspired by a Bored Ape, and ended up writing a book that featured Jenkins the Valet. And that book was written by Neil Strauss, who's a 10-time New York Times bestseller. And we incorporated a bunch of feedback from the community, and we actually incorporated characters that were licensed to us by our community members. And we learned a lot about what it takes to build a character on the internet. And we thought, well, what if we could then build a world that would let other people build characters, sort of take one level up. And so we're also working on a franchise that we call Azurbala, that is a world that we have created. It's sort of if Jenkins played within the Bored Ape Yacht Club sandbox, Azurbala is like a sandbox of our own that we think other people will be able to play in. And that's still very focused on sort of the creation of our own media. We've also learned a lot about how to engage community members in the creative process and in the brand building and in the world building process for anyone who's looking to start like an internet native franchise. And our background, as much as it comes from sort of brand and media and things like that, it also comes from software development. And so we build a lot of tools first for ourselves for how to engage our community in the creative process. And eventually those tools, I think, will scale to other creators who have similar ambition to involve sort of a group of community members in the creative process to make something that starts on the internet and who knows where it goes from there.
Maybe because I don't want it to be lost is, can we touch a little bit on NFT licensing? I think you folks are some of the first to have done it really well and in an organized way. And sounds like you had some learnings along the way. But for me as an outsider, it was probably one of the first things that I saw that just really excited me and kind of felt affirming, like it affirmed some of my beliefs in what might be able to be done in the space. And so early days when I didn't own any Jenkins NFTs, what I had done was partnered with a couple of people in your community to give license to my apes to be, featured in one way or another in the book. Maybe we could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah. I mean, licensing is very, very, and IP use in general, I would say, is very much a spectrum. We're really, really fortunate to be on one end of the spectrum where we were in the right place in the right time and made some early moves that allow us to now have the resources to put a lot of what we have behind building our character. There's many, many other people, and frankly, most of the long tail, whether it's for financial reasons, whether it's bandwidth, this is now our full-time job, right? But there's, most people in the NFT space is not their full-time job. And so when we say that licensing is a spectrum, we mean that it ranges from Jenkins all the way to someone who owns an NFT, thinks it's cool, maybe wants to give it a name, maybe doesn't even want to give it a name, but like wants to put it to work. And so a lot of what we've been focused on is giving people like that, and really giving the whole spectrum the opportunity to partake in an NFT community by bringing their character to life, or make money by using their IP, which is why we were sort of granted those rights. And so we sort of proof of concept for that was with Bored and Dangerous, where you referenced it, but 4,075 apes and mutants were licensed to appear in the novel, ranging from main characters referenced by name all the way down to special sections of the acknowledgments. We have sort of upgraded and built a new licensing flow for the next opportunity, which is going to be this podcast coming up. That's going to sort of allow it to all happen on the platform in a few clicks with no emails or anything like that. But we're really excited about that. And that's actually going to be the first time we're opening up licensing outside of just the ape and mutant community. So we're going to offer support for many, many more. And the goal is for that to continue to be a really important part of what we do, because we believe that, one, folks want to bring their NFTs to life in the form of characters. They just need the inspiration and technology to do it. And then two, they want to make money. And so we've built a framework that allows people to do that, and also partake in like really fun pieces of media and see them come to life.
That's the, I think this is, for me, this sounds terrible and almost very ignorant and naive. Like I jumped into this space with not a lot of expectation of financial gain. And even in the bear market, to be honest, like I have not sold enough NFTs. I've hardly sold NFTs, and that was probably a failure of mine over the last year and a half. But I do see that, to get outside of this narrative around NFTs simply existing for speculation and the greater fool and like just a way for people to make money and move on. This is the thing that excites me, is what exactly you guys are talking about right here, is seeing these opportunities out there in this Web3 world and being able to be a part of the journey somehow, probably learn something along the way, hopefully, be able to monetize along the way, and in turn, that asset that I've purchased bringing me some value, and that value might come in different forms, not just financial. But I think that, like, why would anyone hang on to an NFT besides the fact that they just like it and want to show it and whatever, in 20 years or something like that? And I think that what you are working on here really gives a good use case for why this stuff might all matter. So anyway, rant over, but I think it's very, very neat. I'd love to know, over, oh man, it's been longer than a year and a half now that you've been working on this, but what have your biggest learnings been related to whichever, whether it's the licensing or the IP use or the community involvement? Is there anything that, you've really come out on this side of things and say, hey, this is not what I expected. It's helped you grow or whatever?
Yeah, great question. I'll touch briefly on some learnings from licensing and then go to Safa for the others. Your point about the value that you can get that isn't financial, I think is really well said. For us, maybe even for the listeners who don't know exactly about how licensing worked for like the first book that we wrote with Jenkins, even describing like the way the opportunities that people had to license their NFTs might be helpful, and taught us a lot for sure. We weren't sure how it would go, and we learned a lot. So to participate in helping source creative for Jenkins the Valet, you have to hold one of our NFTs. Jenkins came out with about 7,000 NFTs that let community members participate and help him tell his stories. And it's basically like a membership club. And there are 4 tiers of NFTs that exist. The highest tier, there's about 1% of them. And then there's 4% of the second tier. And then there's 25% of the third tier. And then the rest are the fourth tier. And so that leaves you at about 70 sort of really like tier 1 NFTs, and then a couple hundred tier 2, and then 1,000 tier 3, and then about 5,000 tier 4. And the reason that I lay that out is that each of those people had the opportunity to license characters to appear in the work, but you can't feature like 7,000 characters in a book or something. There were 4,075 characters that got licensed in total. And based off of the tier of your membership, we actually featured the characters in different ways. And so there were maybe 65 characters that were actually written into the book by Neil Strauss. They were named as characters. They appeared in multiple scenes. They sort of folks were able to write bios for them, and so they came to life. And Neil really like listened to what people wanted for their characters and things like that. The next tier, where there were a couple hundred, each of those characters got illustrated into the book. And so we have ambition to publish the book like through a traditional publisher, and you'd find it at a Barnes and Noble or an Indigo in Canada or anything like that. And in the case that book does show up in print, you would see your character illustrated like right there in the work. For the next 1,000, we did a game of Where's Jenkins. We learned that the people that make Where's Waldo, it's called search and find illustration. And so we found this like awesome search and find artist from Hiroshima, Japan. And they did almost 1,000 apes and mutants in this like huge piece where Jenkins was like hidden. And then the final, 3,000 or 4,000 appeared in sort of a special version of the acknowledgments where you got to sort of click in and see more details about the bios that they wrote for those characters. But the I know that's like a lot, and it's a bunch of different sort of tiers, and it could sound confusing, but I think what we found was that people really valued, like, it felt like play with their NFTs when they licensed them to us. And then take the 1,000 that appeared in the search and find game. We had a community member make a custom puzzle of the search and find poster, and he put it together with his kids, and then they found his ape, and a bunch of people have ordered posters. We've given some posters away. I know some of the people who have illustrations of their characters, we posted them all to Twitter, have printed them and framed them. A lot of people reached out to us who had their characters appear in the work, talk about sort of reading the book with their children or with their partners, or showing the book to friends and being like, this is my Bored Ape. Like, I named this ape. I named it Captain Trippy, and here's Captain Trippy in chapter 4 of this book working, on this problem. And so we weren't sure why people would license. It turned out a lot of people did. And then it turned out that, like, royalties or anything aside, the thing that I think people really enjoyed the most was like seeing professionals use their own IP, like their NFTs, and do something creative with them. And that's something that I think we're like really eager to continue trying to like nurture in the space.
That's really well said. I think one other thing that we've learned is just the importance of creating content with your community. I don't know that at the beginning when we started that we realized what it would mean for us, or the fact that we would sort of build a business completely centered around it. But ultimately what we've learned is that, and I think, we always say that Web3 is sort of, as advanced and as exciting as blockchain technology is, what's equally as exciting about Web3 is sort of the cultural shift and the mindset that it brings. And so for us, I think we've found that when you create content with your community, it creates a far different relationship than if you were to create content on your own and then try and sell it to your community. So actually building with them makes it so that everyone feels that they own it, right? And they're part of it, and they're responsible for the output. And that makes for like a far greater relationship. It completely changes the dynamic. It makes it a lot more dynamic. And it's something we've become really excited about, and are now, focusing on helping other people do that as well. So I think that's been a huge learning for us, is like, you can say it, but once you do it, you're like, wow, there's no going back, because this is the relationship that I want with my community.
I think that really speaks to the decentralized nature of all of this. And it's something that I think can be missed. And I can appreciate that sometimes it's not actually easy to facilitate that. But I think from an outsider's perspective, or somebody's just trying to learn about the space, what can be done, this understanding of community beyond just being groups in, a connected social platform. It's really about folks who have maybe not a shared vision completely, but a shared values, and I, if they love what you're doing, then they become champions as well of what you're working on, which is really, at the end of the day, something that's totally new when it comes to marketing. Like, it feels like you've got these people who are out there participating and then shouting from the rooftops how much they love the stuff that you're all collectively working on together, which is just really, really neat. So that's, just a whole different dynamic that I think a lot of people don't really appreciate yet if they haven't been paying attention.
That's definitely true. We've also, I mean, to your point about like community being more than like a group on a social network, we have found that the type of people who are drawn to participate with Jenkins the Valet, or really just participate around like anything in the Tile Labs ecosystem, are creative themselves,
Mm-hmm.
if not like just as a hobby. And so a lot of our community members have reached out to us asking to pick our brains about different projects they're thinking about, or different things that they already have underway, or some collaboration that they're doing with a fellow community member. And I think the thing that's really cool is, just like when we started with Jenkins, oftentimes people, there's no expectation of like it becoming something other than just being like a creative outlet. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you have like something like a project that centers around the sort of co-creation of media, like between community members, it's a filter. So the only people that really, many people maybe join, but the people that really stick around are the people that really believe in it, or that are invested in that, not only because you're doing it, but just because they think that that's like, they believe in sort of that vision of the future as well. And so
Mm-hmm.
folks find each other, and there's
Mm-hmm.
community to community sort of like interaction, rather than only sort of going around like the formal project or the founders of the project or anything like that. That's been
Mm-hmm.
one of the coolest things for us to see, is just people like working together on unaffiliated projects, but they
Mm-hmm.
found each other because they were both engaged with what we work on.
Very cool. I do want to talk a bit about the future. But before we do, I'm want to talk a little bit about the business side of all of this, if you're cool with it. Because I'm sure people are wondering like how this all can work and how you guys have been able to scale, because you really have been scaling. I know that you did a round of fundraising successfully. I think it was May of 2022. And to me, this is, and we're seeing more and more of this. Obviously, when you're activating things through NFTs, you're able to get sort of funding through that. But of course, we're seeing people reaching out for capital outside of just like holders of a project. And you mentioned in an article about the importance of a considered approach to funding in this space. And it really, I think, spoke to investors who can bring value to the table, basically, besides monetary value. And I'm just wondering if you can just touch on that a little bit, what that process has been like. Like, fundraising can be a very difficult thing for lots of people, especially depending on the market and the times. But, when you're talking to people about like a brand new idea, just wondering how you navigate that.
Great question. Really great question. It's also timely. VJ and I were speaking on the phone yesterday, sort of reflecting back on the fundraise. And I don't think we realized it at the time, but it was obviously a really, really pivotal moment for the business. We were fortunate in that when we raised, we had no idea what was going to happen with the market. It was pre Three Arrows Capital. It was pre Celsius. It was pre FTX and pre all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we felt that it was beneficial for the business, but obviously there was no way we could have foreseen what would happen in the market. And so it ended up being a huge borderline. Like, I don't even, I hate to, I'm not going to use the word like life-saving by any means, because I think we would still be around, but like it has allowed us to operate with significantly more comfort and less stress than we otherwise would. And it's allowed us to really focus on kind of building through this. I can say with certainty, we wouldn't have made the progress that we have without it. It was also just a really fun time. It was sort of the first time that VJ and I were going through that together, and we learned so much that I think is going to really serve us in our careers. But we were fortunate that A16Z was one of the earlier conversations that we had. Obviously, their reputation precedes them as far as how well known they are, the companies that they've invested in, the folks on their team, et cetera. And that was really sort of what we were looking for in a partner, was someone who really brought strategic value, really understood what we were doing, understood the vision, didn't want to change it, but rather wanted to like offer guidance and support it. And we found that we had found that with them. We were looking for someone that when we would come to with an issue, we would find partners. We wouldn't find like critics. Obviously, we wanted tough love, but we wanted someone who was on the same side as us, right? And had seen a lot of things and would help us navigate, what's really a sort of an ever-changing environment. And so their team is really robust. I mean, they have ex-regulators to help us through the legal and the regulatory side. They have a whole go-to-market and operations team whose job is to help make connections to us within the firm and outside of it. They have a PR arm. They are just they have really, really staffed up and grown as well, mostly on the teams that are like dedicated to helping portfolio companies. So we've been really, really excited about how the relationship has gone. 100% a really pivotal moment in the business, and we're really grateful to be working with them. So it's the timing worked out really, really well.
I think I can appreciate that you guys are navigating, unknown waters with everything that you're doing. Folks, in Web3, that's the name of the game right now. And I also know that there's different ideals in this space when we talk about, like, some folks are very romantic about Web3. And I mean, I have my own opinions about that. I'm less romantic about it personally, but I think that trying to balance some traditional business mindset while moving forward is probably really, really critical when really trying to build something that's successful. And I know that from my perspective, as I'm a holder, but I will admit that I'm probably not super engaged because I'm quite busy for a variety of reasons. But I do know that what I see is, like, you guys are super focused on compliance when it comes to regulation, and that's meant that you've had to pivot. And for me, as someone who's maybe slightly less romantic about, anonymity and all of this stuff, I feel a lot of trust in you guys as leaders of this entity to be moving it forward in a way that is sustainable and makes sense, and that will be something that will be attractive for a broader, whether audience or new members to your community down the line. So I personally want to give you guys kudos. I'm sure it's not easy to navigate some of the conversations around some of this stuff. But anyways, I don't know if you want to make a comment on that, but I think, just to your point, Safa, is just like, if you guys hadn't made some of these moves last year, there's so many folks that were relying on crypto to carry them through in secondary sales, and they're just not swimming right now.
Yeah. I'll comment on it, and first and foremost, I thank you for saying that. It means a lot, like, specifically to hear you say that. Like, here's sort of our attitude. We couldn't be more bullish on Web3, right? We're literally building a business in Web3, so I feel like that's like a really important caveat. But Web3, I don't even know if there's like really one definition of like what Web3 means when people say it. And for us, Web3, and the thing that I think we're probably pretty romantic about, is it's this incredible place where the lines get blurred between like creators and community members, and and community members or fans have the opportunity to influence creators, and the economics around creators who make things on the internet are like a lot more favorable for the creator than like for sort of legacy platforms that exist, right? So on Instagram, folks who have big followings make, I think, 0% of the revenue that they generate. They're generating revenue because they've got people involved, and then Meta makes all the money with their ads. Web3 is clearly not set up that way, right? The creators and sort of community members who then spin out to participate in creations of their own and all of that kind of stuff. People can make a living in Web3, I think, in a way that has been much more challenging historically. And we believe in that, like, to the extreme. Because we believe in that to the extreme, we have to stay alive as a company. We have to exist in the world that exists today We need to not be in jail or out of business or like losing all of our money because we're paying fines. And like, I don't think that that should necessarily be like a super pragmatic like opinion. Like, I think that that is just like, you know, that like we want to endure so that we can do the best we can do to support creators on the internet and their community members like forever. I totally like, I understand that that's not always a popular opinion, and that there are people who, I think there's a whole spectrum of like ways that people want to behave or think that others should behave. For us, where we draw the line is we think we need to be in the game to make the biggest difference that we possibly can. And so we make decisions that allow us and allow our community members to stay in the game. We have seen instances in the past where folks ignore that, and it's not only the business or the founders that get in trouble or are sort of hurt. Community members who are involved get hurt as well, and we would never do that, because our point of view is, as long as we can keep going and we can hold true to like our beliefs about what should be possible on the internet for creators and community members, we can end up making like a really positive difference.
I love that. I think that this is a good time to talk about the future then. Why don't you share with us some of the stuff that you're currently working on? Would love to know a little bit more about the podcast and anything else that you'd like to draw attention to at the moment.
Yeah. Our business right now, and for sure for the foreseeable future, has like 3 areas of focus. The first one is Jenkins and all of everything that surrounds that. So the writer's room includes that. Bored and Dangerous includes that. The forthcoming podcast, which I'll touch on in greater detail, includes that. The second is Azerbala. You can sort of, if you want to even zoom out more, you know, you could count both of them as like IP, but you know, third one being Azerbala, and really focusing on making a phenomenal PFP project, earning the trust back that we lost from the art reveal, surrounding ourselves with professionals who bring to the table what we don't, and really making that sort of a world and a universe that can stand on its own and be exciting for folks, and hopefully be appealing not just to a Web3 community. So those are the first 2. Again, those could sort of both be considered IP. And then another focus for us is software. So everything that you've seen us do from the writer's room side, from the licensing side, from the character creation side, those have all sort of been standalone software experiences that we've launched, each of which has been exciting and successful. And the next step is to sort of roll them up into something a little bit more cohesive, and actually allow others to benefit from that as well. So that is something that we're really focused on. So it's the 2 pieces of IP, and then building this software platform to bring to other communities what we've brought to ours, and hopefully really push the space forward.
I feel like we could spend another hour talking about all of this stuff, but I know we don't have it, but maybe a part 2 at some point. Do we want to dive a little bit more into the podcast?
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
That sounds great.
Oh, go ahead, VJ. Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean, I think both of us are super happy to talk podcasts.
Yeah, share with us. I mean, I think that, you know, for us, like at From the Blockchain, we have a podcast, and it's very much a Web2, a Web2 podcast that's talking about Web3. And, you know, eventually we would like to have more Web3 components to the pod, you know, and that can be done in a variety of ways. I'd love to know kind of what you can share about what you're working on with that, and how you see it kind of rolling out, and any details that you can provide in terms of like what to be watching for. That would be awesome.
Yeah, awesome. So, you know, I know some of the listeners will know, but others may not. It ties in a bit to licensing, but you can't. I mean, I guess technically you could just license like a picture of an NFT, but it's far more fun for people to license characters. We sort of think of characters as a layer on top of the NFT, right? So you've got Bored Ape 1798. It's a Bored Ape. He's dressed like a valet. But then you make it a character. You name him Jenkins the Valet. He's got a backstory. He's got formative events. He's got things that he struggles with. He's got things that he's really good at, like all of that. He's got phobias. And so this time around for the podcast, we created a product where people could connect their crypto wallets, see all of their NFTs, and then turn those NFTs into characters. And shout out Board Becky and Fame Lady Squad. We have a number of awesome, really cool Fame Lady Squad characters on the platform. And so there, you were able to name the NFT and also give it a bit of a backstory. Soon, as soon as next week, people are going to be able to license those characters into the podcast. And on what will happen then is there's going to be sort of a record of all of these different characters that exist at the different tiers that we talked about. And we're working with Salt Audio, who's like an incredible audio production company. They've done Dirty John. They did Dr. Death. They did Blackout with Rami Malek. They have done a bunch of stuff that has been really successful in audio, and some of it that has also been adapted to TV. And so we were really excited about the breadth of their portfolio. And they've got this entire production arm, and they've got some really awesome like screenwriters who also write for audio, and they're going to be creating this sort of immersive fiction audio experience. Sort of, Safa sometimes says it's going to be like a TV series without visuals. And Jenkins is going to be going on a quest. He lost his dog, his best friend, and really his only family, Good Boy. And I've heard on Twitter, a lot of people think that maybe Good Boy has been stolen, actually, not just lost. And so Jenkins is going to need to go on this big quest to try to recover Good Boy, and he's enlisting the help of sort of dozens of NFT communities, by working with the characters that get licensed to the podcast. And so it should be, I think for us, we're really excited at Tally Labs, especially through the perspective of like community generative storytelling, that it's gonna extend sort of across the space, and we hope sort of be unifying for a number of different communities who get to participate together to help Jenkins sort of solve the problem. Safa, what would you add?
We have a motto internally that says "Let blank cook," and it means when someone's on a roll, the last thing you want to do is get in the way. So VJ's out here cooking. I think I'm going to let him cook. I don't really have much to add to that.
Well, in that case, how much more time do we have?
We're running a little short for you guys. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I do want to ask you one question that I haven't been able to get to yet, if you have a minute, if that's okay. One of the segments that we have on this show is we get ChatGPT to generate a question for us, for our guests. And really, this is just our way of inviting the technology that's being used today and introducing it to our audience, even if it's in the simplest of ways. And so I have a question that ChatGPT came up with for you guys. Can I roll with it?
Let's do it.
All right. And then we'll wrap it up. So according to you, what examples of innovation do you think the public might expect to see at the intersection of media, intellectual property, and Web3 over the next 5 years? And which of these innovations do you think may be the most surprising or unexpected?
Ooh, ChatGPT coming through in the clutch as always. I definitely have an answer to part 1A or question one. The second part is a lot more challenging, I think. In my opinion, I think we've definitely been responsible for some of this, is we've seen a lot of innovation around how content is created in Web3. Prior to Web3, the idea of individuals from all over the world, most of whom are anonymous with different perspectives and different backgrounds, coming together to produce a piece of content is sort of unheard of. It's now starting to happen more and more. What I don't think Web3 has cracked yet is distribution. It feels to me that right now, on one end of the spectrum, you have sort of mainstream mass distribution where brand equity and just awareness is the play. And on the other side, you have sort of Web3 token gated media where the 1,000 true fans model really sort of rings through, which is sort of what we went for with Bored and Dangerous. Obviously, it was entirely token gated. The only people that could read it were our holders. There's probably some sort of a middle area where you can achieve mainstream and mass adoption, but there's a tokenized, heavier sort of community-based element. I'm excited to see what innovation looks like around that. We have something that we're excited to sort of experiment with the podcast. But I'm excited to see like what the intersection of actual mainstream, highly consumed media plus tokenized communities looks like. Right now, they're sort of like isolated on both ends of like the barbell.
Valet Jones, anything you want to add to that kind of discussion?
Honestly, I think I need to just play my Uno reverse card and say what he said.
I think that's great. You guys, I've had such a wonderful time chatting with you. It's sparked a bunch of ideas in me, and I'm certainly excited to pay more attention to what you're working on. As you all know, I've had a baby this past year, so I've been a little bit less hyper focused on me playing around. Although I'm excited to see what people are doing, and I'm certainly going to be watching what you guys are doing and participating in whatever it is that you put forward. So I'm pumped for you guys. Before we leave, what would be the best places for our audience to find you at, whether it's Tally Labs, Jenkins, yourselves individually, and we will make sure to put the links in the show notes so you don't have to like spell it all out. But where should people follow you?
All right, we've got a few to rattle off in no particular order. You have us, at C8 Follow Ape, at Valet Jones. You have at Tally Labs NFT, which is our parent company. You have at Jenkins the Valet, who's our beloved valet and main character. You have at Jenkins the Mutant, who is at Jenkins Mutated, who is his diabolical enemy. You have at Good Boy NFT, who we're going to be saving on the podcast. Who am I missing, VJ? Anything? You have at Not Thread Guy is just a good follow.
Yeah, as if he needs any more help growing that thing.
Yeah.
No, I think you got it.
Maybe I can ask you guys, are you outside of Twitter and the podcast and those sorts of, and Discord, are you playing in any other sort of more traditional Web2 spaces such as like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, anything like that?
We will be very soon. Our content strategist has put together some plans that are going to see us on a few of those platforms in the coming months.
I'm excited to see the visual side of this is where I'm thinking this is going. So maybe.
Yeah, the good thing is we have sort of a pretty robust backlog of like visual content that I think could do well on a lot of those platforms.
Cool, guys. Well, this has been awesome. Really appreciate it. Again, there's so much more we could get into, but we'll save it for another day. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast where we talk to innovators and hear stories of innovation from the blockchain. Thank you for joining us on From the Blockchain. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions about today's episode, please send us a message so we can answer it. If you want to learn more about Fame Lady Squad or how you can get involved with NFTs, please visit our website or join our growing community on Discord. We genuinely believe we couldn't do the things we do without the support of our community and listeners like you. So thank you. We'll see you again soon.